Jersey City, make some noise, family. And because, welcome, thank you, glad to be here. I've been all over New Jersey, but never to Jersey City.
All right now, okay.
Camden is right over the bridge from my hometown of Philly, where I still live. So I'm always in Camden. I'm always in Cherry Hill. I did my pre-doctoral internship for my clinical psychology degree in Trenton. So I know Trenton quite well. I interned with DYFS, Department of Youth and Family Services. I think it has a new name now. But I learned how they destroy black families through DYFS in New Jersey. And I've been to Montclair, Elizabeth, always in Newark. Newark is like a second home. So I'm not sure why it's taking me so long to get to Jersey City.
Because they're training you.
We're glad you're here.
I done went to several black churches. I saw them bring it up, and they told me no last time, and they told me no again.
Yes, sir, Bob.
We're glad you're here, though.
Oh, absolutely. So, I want to get into my message, and I'm going to leave enough time for us to have a conversation. The benefit of the small group is you can be more intimate with the dialogue, whereas you can't do it with the larger group, so we can be more personable tonight. First of all, I got to express my sympathies to our brother. I believe his name is Andrew Washington, am I correct? Who was shot and killed by the police. I got introduced to your mayor, Mr. Stephen Fuller, whatever. And I was taken aback by how non-concerned he was with that murder when he said that the shooting was justified. And it wasn't what he said, it was how he said it.
That's right.
And then I also learned that Jersey City, believe it or not, I think you're number 1, 2, or 3 for the most money spent per pupil in public school of any district in the United States. Jersey City spends $32,000 a year per pupil, which puts you above many of the upper middle class white school districts. So the question that I would have right off the top, if Jersey City is spending $32,000 a year per pupil, putting it in the top 3 in the nation of all school districts, why do we have so many black kids still being put in special education? If you have that type of money, you should have the best reading program available. You should have the best math program available. So we should not see so many black boys and girls going into special ed because you have a reading and math program that they need. So where is this $32,000 a year per pupil going? And I can tell you where it's going. It's going to hire more white people to come into the school district. That's what they do with the extra money. Most money that comes into inner city black school districts does not go to the classroom. It does not go to the children. It does not go to the parents. They use it to hire more white people. So when you read the news and they say the state just gave Jersey City an extra $5 million, $2 million, $10 million, that's $10 million in white people to pay their bills. You need to understand that. Most money does not go to the classroom. The other thing that I found rather interesting about Jersey City as well, you're also in the top 3. In fact, I think you're number 1 for the highest rental price in the country. They said that Jersey City averages the rent, monthly rent in Jersey City is around $5,500 higher than Manhattan. Okay? And then they also talked about the gentrification in Jersey City. Yes, sir. You guys are top 10 for gentrification, which means the ethnic cleansing of black people to be replaced by whites and anti-black minority groups. Okay? So one of the things I have to say right off the top, Jersey City, you don't have no friends. Black people don't. Okay, now we wish the brown people well, and we wish the red people well, and we wish the yellow people well, and we wish the white people well, but black people's problems have to be solved by black people. We have to understand that. And you cannot have solidarity with the other groups, because as we've learned through our history, with Latinos, with Jews, with LGBTQs, they will ride your back until they get to the stop they want, and then they hop off your back, and they act like they never knew you. So we have to stop this solidarity, multicultural thing, because it's killing black folks. You see what's happening in Chicago and New York with the migrant crisis. Okay? And we're partly responsible for the migrant crisis because we've been the ones running around pushing black and brown unity when it has never happened. Now don't get me wrong, we got brown brothers and sisters who identify as African because their ancestors came from the continent as well. But if we're going to be honest, as someone who grew up in a Latino neighborhood, I know that most Latinos are anti-black. They're not thinking about us. But every time we open our mouth, we got to talk about everybody under the sun except ourselves. You know, I was getting emails today about the situation going on in the Gaza Strip between the Palestinians and the Israelis. And I hope that there is no war. I hope the fighting stops. I hope those children are being protected. I hope none of the women are harmed. But guess what? That's not my fight. I wish them well, but that's not my fight. I'm black. And last time I checked, neither one of them countries been doing anything about our loss of life over here. They haven't been doing anything about what happens in Africa either. So we have to make sure that we stay focused on ourselves and make ourselves our priority. Because we are often nobody's priority, including ourselves. So when we talk about the school to prison pipeline, a couple things we got to go over. And I'm hoping you pay really good attention to what I talk about tonight. And I'm going to make sure you guys have my phone number before we leave here. So if you ever got to reach out to me about your child, you need to do a consultation. I do consultations all day long. I did one today. Got to do another one probably tonight around midnight for parents who live on the West Coast. But if you ever need a consult, you need an expert school psychologist, clinical psychologist to help you navigate what's happening to your children. You'll be able to call on Dr. Umar. So let's start at the beginning. Special education is a federal law. It's a federal law. Okay, that means it applies to the entire United States and territories. Last month, I was in St. Croix, St. Thomas. Those are U.S. territories. So guess what? They got a special ed crisis as well. Okay, so special ed is a federal law that came into existence in 1975. Public Law 94-142. For the first time in American history, U.S. Congress said children with disabilities must be allowed to go to school and they cannot be charged for the services they need when they get in school. So the first thing I want y'all to understand about special ed is whenever your child is qualified for special ed, you don't pay anything. Now that sounds like common sense, but guess what? It's not. Because I'm willing to bet you we can find black kids in Jersey City who have an IEP, who are in special education, and the principal goes to the mother or father and say, you know, we got a reading program that we think your son could benefit from. But the reading program costs $75 a week. Now, we don't know if you got it, but if you can somehow get $75 a week, you should put your child in a special reading program. They just broke the law right there. You know why? Because if that child has an IEP, which means they are a special education student, that means the school district gets extra money to help them learn. So that $75 that the mother is paying for the after-school reading program, she should not be paying. The IEP team should be paying for it, and it should come out the special ed subsidy that Trenton sends to Jersey City. So I need you parents to stop getting hustled by schools who are making you pay for services that they should be paying out the special ed subsidy. Are we clear about that?
Yes.
You don't pay for it. If the IEP team ever says there's a service your child could benefit from, y'all need to pay for it. It's just that simple. Remember, special ed kids on average are worth twice as much as regular ed students, right? So in Jersey City, wow, I wonder what the Jersey City special ed supplement is. Because if y'all spending $32,000 a year for a regular kid, them special kids might be getting around $50,000. So you mean to tell me you spending $50,000 on a special ed kid or something near that amount, and they still can't read? Still can't count? Still not graduating on time? So, let's back up. So special ed is a federal law. And there's two main clauses that cover special ed. If you take your notes, you want to write these down. If you buy my book later tonight, I talk about it in there. One clause is FAPE, free and appropriate public education. FAPE. You must memorize that clause because every letter you write to the school about your child's disability, for those of you who got children who have disabilities, you always want to include every letter you write to the principal should always include the clause free and appropriate public education. It's the most important clause in special ed law. So for example, your child been in special ed for 4 years, reading disability, still can't read. Your letter is going to say, my child is being denied his right to a free and appropriate public education, which is guaranteed by the U.S. Congress. He's been in special ed for 4 years with an IEP. He goes to school, he does his homework, I'm involved, and my son still can't read, and he is not intellectually disabled. Because what the law says, if a New Jersey school, any school in America, if you can prove that they are not properly educating your disabled child, you can make them pay for your disabled child to go to a private school at public expense.
Oh, they owe me money.
Okay? This is the law. And so you have white parents who take advantage of this because they be on top of their game. And I know because I've helped some of them get private education for their children. Let me tell you what the white folks do. They can't afford private school. Let's say you got a white family, they can't afford private school, but they don't want their kids going to school with black kids. They'll get them diagnosed by a clinical psychologist on the outside of school with ADHD. Which, by the way, is a fraud and a scam. We'll come to that later. ADHD is nothing more than a criminalization of regular, healthy, adolescent black boy behavior. The problem is the schools are dominated by women. Female energy is suffocating the boys in your public schools. They need men, they don't need women. But the problem is the teachers' unions don't want strong black men in the school because it undermines their authority. So what they do, they get all the black boys diagnosed with ADHD, conduct disorder, oppositional defiant disorder. Then they manipulate the parents and they take them to the psychiatrist. So now you got your Ritalin prescription, your Adderall prescription, your Cyclone prescription, your Metadate prescription. And once you start noticing the side effects of your child taking these ADHD meds, you stop giving them the meds, then they call DIFUS on you, and the DIFUS is going to say, if you ever interrupt the medical schedule again, we're coming to confiscate all your children, and you'll be charged with medical neglect.
That's why you.
And now your child abuse record is dirty, pending the investigation, just because you stopped giving your children medicine that clearly exerted a negative impact on them. So I'm going to tell you this right now, and you're not going to hear another psychologist tell you, so you better remember when I tell you this. If the school ever asks you to get your child evaluated for behavioral problems, your answer is no. Because the only solution in America for ADHD, conduct disorder, and ODD is drugs, drugs, drugs. And Ritalin is pharmacologically equivalent to crack. Ritalin is classified by the Drug Enforcement Agency of America as a Schedule B drug. That means it's just as addictive and just as habit-forming and just as dangerous as opium and cocaine. In fact, it's only one molecule away from cocaine. So when you give your children Ritalin, Adderall, Concerta, Metadate, Cyclone, you're giving them synthesized crack. So if crack isn't good for men to be selling it on the street corner, it damn sure shouldn't be good enough to be giving it to your child in school.
That's what I'm talking about.
Stop giving them drugs. But the minute you sign your name on that evaluation, consenting to the ADHD evaluation, you just gave them permission to label your child. And once they label your child, they can force the medication. And guess what? Over the bridge in New York, Wall Street, all the drug companies are publicly traded. That's right. How much money they make? $30 billion a year of black people who don't want to teach their children discipline and rather give them drugs to do it. That's right. So, let's come back to special ed. 3 words are interchangeable. 3 words are interchangeable. You can't have one without the other 3, right? Just like in church, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. You can't have one without the other 2. And special ed is disability, special education, and IEP. Those 3 things go together. If your child is in special ed, that means they have an IEP, that means they have a disability. If your child has an IEP, that means they're in special ed, they have a disability. You cannot be in special ed without a disability.
Yes.
If you say, Dr. Umar, my child is special ed, he ain't never been evaluated, he ain't never been labeled, they're breaking a law or you don't know what you're talking about, one or the other. Because the process begins with me. I'm the school psychologist. Okay?
Yes.
Principal called me up, special ed coordinator called me up. Dr. Umar, we have a signed permission form from a parent in Jersey City. We want the child to be evaluated. We think there's a reading disability, a math disability, autism, intellectual disability, emotional disturbance, other health impairment for ADHD, CD, ODD, or we think there's a speech and language problem, a deaf problem, a hearing impairment, an orthopedic impairment, a multiple disability. There's 13 disabilities that we evaluate for special ed, and only 13. Do not confuse school psychology with clinical psychology. Clinical psychology, we have over 400 disorders, right? Bipolar, borderline, schizophrenia, anxiety, depression, bulimia. Those are clinical diagnoses. That's clinical psychology. We cannot evaluate for those in the school. In school, special ed, which is school psychology, and I do both because my training is both, right? So in the school, it's only 13. So if ADHD is not a special education disability, how do kids end up in special ed for ADHD if ADHD is a clinical disorder and not a special ed disability? I'll tell you why. There's a category in special ed called OHI, other health impairment. This is any medical problem. Remember, psychiatry is a branch of medicine. So ADHD, even though it's a fake and a scam, is considered a legitimate medical diagnosis. So if you take your child to We Hate Black Kids Mental Health Center in Jersey City, and they diagnose your child with ADHD, you bring that evaluation back to the school, now they can put them in special ed because you brought them the evaluation. We can make the evaluation in school, but if you bring it to us, we can use it. Does everybody understand that? So that means if your child is diagnosed with ADHD outside the school, that report should never end up in school. Because nothing good is ever going to happen to your child by you telling the school that he was diagnosed with conduct disorder on the outside. Stuff on the outside need to stay on the outside. And for that point, my mothers in particular, because y'all talk too much, I'm just going to be honest. Half your problems come from the fact you telling school business they don't need to know.
Okay.
Okay?
That's
Stop sharing all the evaluations with the school. Even if your child is being evaluated. They say, can you bring us all the evaluation that's ever been done? Medical, psychological, and you bring up, no! You only give them what you want them to know.
Okay.
Okay? Stop running your mouth. Your child's teacher is not your girlfriend. She's not your life coach. She's not your counselor. She's not your social worker. The school is the new prison, and the teacher is the new probation officer. And anything you tell, and you're talking to a former principal, former assistant principal, soon to be again when we get FDMG up, you better understand. Anything you say in that school about you or your family can and will be used against you. I've seen it over and over. I still see it every day. You sat there and told that white woman or that Negro peeing all your business. You're recovering from opioids. Father locked up, another father in jail. You living in your mama's basement with 5 kids. You got in trouble for spanking one too hard. You've been unemployed for 10 years. All of this is being remembered and recorded. And when they call you up and say, we want Rashida evaluated for the math disability, you say nothing wrong with Rashida. My daughter ain't got no math disability. They say, well, she's below basic on the New Jersey aptitude test. And you're going to say, I know that, but let me tell you why. It's not because she's not learning disabled. It's because last year my daughter had a teacher, fresh out of We Hate Black Kids University. She could barely count her damn self. Okay? The year before that, my daughter was suspended from school 2 days every week. She was never in the classroom long enough to learn how to count. Year before that, my daughter's teacher went out on maternity leave in November, and she had 25 substitutes from November to June.
Right.
So yes, my daughter is not reading on grade level or counting on grade level, not because she can't count, but because y'all haven't taught her. Understand, you should never sign a permission to evaluate form if you know why your child is not achieving. You should never sign an evaluation form unless you believe something wrong with your child. The worst thing I can hear black parents say, why did you let them evaluate your child? Because they asked me to. So if I told you to go jump off the damn bridge, would you go jump? Because I asked you to.
No.
You don't ever give nobody permission to determine why your child is struggling when you know why.
That's right.
And guess what? A lot of times your child's academic struggles ain't got nothing to do with the school.
Okay.
It's home problems coming to the school.
That's right. That's right. That's,
Your daughter coming to school every day with her head down. Why is her head down? You know why her head down? Because she's being sexually abused by mama's boyfriend.
Yeah, it went under the rug.
Okay?
Okay.
She's stressed out, she's hurt,
right.
she's depressed, and so she's angry and don't want to do no damn work. Okay? Family problems are not learning disabilities. Let me say that one more time. Family problems are not learning disabilities. What about your son? He's 8 years old. He want to fight everybody in school. They want to diagnose him as emotionally disturbed. I interviewed your son. I found out his father got locked up last year. You ain't taken him to visit his father once yet. Him and his father was tight.
They don't want to hear that.
Tight as nails. You destroyed the relationship. This is not ADHD. This is an attachment disruption. You disrupted the natural bond between father and son. That is not an IEP condition. That is not a learning disability. That's poor parenting. And so many of our kids end up in school because of poor parenting, end up in special ed because of poor parenting. And some of y'all, because you don't want to admit the role you played in
Okay,
the problem,
now that's the
you want to
problem.
push it on special
That's
ed
right.
when you know the issue is
That's
really
the
yours. Family problems are not special ed problems. Stop pushing your problems off in the house onto special ed. Okay? A lot of our kids who are so-called ADHD, it ain't nothing but attachment disruption. Being left with the grandmom all day.
Period.
Foster care.
Period.
Adoptive care.
Period.
No home at all.
Period.
Mom marries a new man, he don't want to be bothered with the
Period.
kids. They sad and depressed and angry. They go to
Period.
school fighting or failing out of school, and you looking for a damn evaluation.
That's our
When
community.
you know
That's
your
right.
house is the problem.
That's right. You better say it again.
So, couple things you need to know right from the gate. The learning disability is a scam. I need you to hear me. No other psychologist is going to say this. You know why? Because psychology is a very lucrative profession. If you don't have any integrity and you're willing to give white folks any diagnosis they want for a black child, you can get really rich in my profession. I want y'all to know that. So you're not going to find no psychologist in Jersey City who's going to say the learning disability is a scam, even though they know it, because they're getting paid $3,000, $5,000, $7,000 an eval.
Yes.
So they're not opening their mouth. Okay? What do you mean learning disability is a scam? Let me ask you a question. God forbid, if you go to the doctor and the doctor diagnoses you with diabetes, they can prove diabetes objectively through your sugar count.
Yeah.
If the doctor say you have cancer, God forbid, they can prove cancer objectively with an ultrasound. If the doctor says you got heart disease, they can prove heart disease objectively with an X-ray or an MRI. But when somebody tells you your son or daughter has a learning disability, math, reading, comprehension, how do they prove it? Is there a CAT scan for learning disability? No. Is there an X-ray for learning disability? No. Is there an MRI for learning disability? No. Is there a urine test for learning disability? No. Is there a blood sample for learning disability? No. So how did they decide that your second grader had a reading disability if there's no objective way to prove it? I'll tell you why. When I bring your child into my office, I'm going to give them 6 tests. I'm going to give them an IQ test. I'm going to give them an achievement test, which is going to be reading, math, writing, comprehension. I'm going to give him a visual motor screening. I'm going to give him an adaptive behavior scale. I'm going to give him some sort of emotional screening, a behavioral screening. I'm going to interview the mother, interview the teacher, look at the record, observe your child in the class. That's what an evaluation is. The tests only give me scores. The test doesn't give me diagnosis. Did y'all hear what I said? The test gives me a score. The test does not give me a diagnosis. So how did Dr. Umar decide that this was a reading disability? It was my call. It was my decision. It was my determination.
That's right.
Go to one psychologist, it's a reading disability.
That's
Go
right.
to another psychologist, it's ADHD. Come to Dr. Umar, it's ABT. And they say, what the hell is ABT? That's my diagnosis. He ain't never been taught.
That's right.
Because in Jersey City, most of the black kids who can't read ain't never been taught.
That's all.
In Jersey City, most of the black kids who can't count, they ain't never been taught.
That's right.
So what are they supposed to do for kids who ain't never been taught? Most of your schools in Jersey City are Title I schools. That means the federal government sends millions of dollars to poor schools, low-income schools, to address what? Reading and math deficiency. Title I been around since 1968. Lyndon Baines Johnson, War on Poverty. So you're talking 50 years of Title I money. So if Jersey City been getting 50 years of Title I money, why so many black kids in special ed when they should have been getting tutoring with the Title I money?
That's right.
You know why?
Why?
Because the principal know black parents ain't going to say nothing or do nothing. So they take your Title I money and they spend it on everything except reading and math. You know where your Title I money is? New helmets for the football team. You know where your Title I money is? New uniforms for the basketball team. You know what your Title I money is? New computers for all the staff. New parking lots. Better offices. New furniture. It ain't going on your child because you're not going to ask about it. Title I is one of the biggest scams and ripoffs of black children in America. The money is rarely spent on the child. And when they do spend Title I money on the child, you know how they spend it?
Yeah.
They go into the classroom to the same teacher who miseducated your son. Listen to this. Your son is in the 3rd grade, your daughter in the 4th. Your son and your daughter is in front of this teacher for 35 hours a week. And they can't read and count. And guess what the principal is going to do?
What?
The principal is going to go right to Mrs. Slurbenberger and Dr. Giovanni and say, would you like to stay after school? We have some money left in our Title I budget. Would you like to tutor Raheem and Rashida? And Dr. Giovanni and Miss Slovenberger say, sure, I'll stay after school. I could use some extra money. Christmas is coming up. So the same teacher who can't teach from 8 to 3 is going to stay after school from 3 to 6.
Right.
Who in here believes that a teacher who can't teach from 8 to 3 can miraculously do so from 3 to 6? You see the scale? You should never let the classroom teacher be the tutor.
That's right.
I'm going to go a step further. It's almost impossible for you to let another teacher in the school be the tutor. Do you know why? Dr. Giovanni is going to bias all the other teachers in the school against your child. Are y'all following me? And why is she going to do that? Why not let that teacher find out on her own how difficult it is to teach your son how to count and your daughter how to read? She can't. Because if that teacher finds out your son and daughter can learn and learn quickly, that's an indictment on Dr. Giovanni. So what the teachers do is they bias each other. This is, I work with them. They will bias a teacher against your child because their ego and professional reputation is more important than your son's academic elevation.
I believe that.
No, I know that.
Yeah.
And then you have the white teacher mafia. No offense to my Caucasians in the room. I know you're innocent. I'm talking about the guilty. Let's talk about the white teacher mafia. Every black school got one.
That's right.
You know what the white teacher mafia is? It's a group of white teachers, 3 to 5 of them. They've been teaching since George Washington was the president. And guess what? They run the whole school. The principal is scared of the white teacher mafia. The vice principal is scared of the white teacher mafia. The dean of students is scared of the white teacher mafia. They bully all the teachers. And this is why there's no such thing as a black educational leader. They define principal as an educational leader. That's a lie. If you put me in a school with white women who run the damn school, who've been around so long, they've developed so much power with the central office, and you say, Dr. Umar, come in here, we want to raise test scores. In order for me to raise test scores, I got to make those white lazy teachers teach.
That's right.
They ain't taught in 20 years.
Okay.
So you know what they're going to do? The minute I start calling them to my office and say,